the children from their parents and so forth, babes in arms even. So there's, who's accountable for the 2008, market economy sort of crash where people lost their homes because the banks here in the U.S. Were fraudulent in their loans, and then, they get bailed out by the government. So the accountability is huge. It's a huge part of breaking the killing silence. And I'm going to go back to the women's court for a moment, because I love the way that they worked. They also got into a big room together, and they were going around patting and doing rhythmic things on their bodies and yelling out things like, calling out for accountability and justice, just spontaneously. A woman at a time would just do that. They're milling about the room. This is such a woman's way of doing things, so body connected, so organized in a chaotic, or chaos in an organized way, spontaneous is what I'm saying. That has to do with real feelings and real emotions, and you get the picture there. So they also did a big march through Sarajevo with huge banners, these massive women walking through the streets, calling for accountability. So we need to do this as collectively as women. We need our collective power. Women's power has always been a collective power. The mothers, the village, the all the things we've been separated from as women. Not being together in social engagement, is one thing and it's another aspect that I want to go back to, how we've been separated from our own bodies, from the trivialization and demonization of menses, to the moon lodges we used to have, where we'd come together when we were bleeding in a tribe together, bringing through wisdom, because the womb is a portal of wisdom, as well as a portal for bringing in spirits into the world. So the myriad ways we've been separated into separate households in a nuclear family, where we have the burden, a man and a woman, or often a single mother, the burden of raising those children in an economy that doesn't really support children and women. So this is a huge burden. It's not the normal way to raise children. We need to do it truly as a village. We need to do it as a larger family. So, and I was going to get back to something else, and I forgot what. Social engagement. The three things that Denise talked about that I learned that were so important: break the killing silence. In other words, tell your story, listen to each other, accountability, and then social engagement. And this is the fun part that we did at the conference. Part of the social engagement is dancing the kolo. This was called the Kolo International Women's Summit. Kolo means the women's round dance. Holding hands in a circle, dancing. And what happens in the kolo is that, as Denisa describes it, your vagus nerve, it goes down and up through your body, gets looped and connected to all the other nerves, the nervous systems of the other women in the dance. And so you're literally healing each other's nervous system from trauma in an indirect way, right? An indirect way. And so you're dancing the kolo, your feet are moving fast, and you're doing these little steps, and you're going, and the circle's rotating around, and you're yipping, and you're making all this noise, and you're in a state of joy together. So we were doing that in that first pre-conference day. It was called the pre-conference. We were down in a conference room in the hotel Sarajevo, and we were dancing the kolo. The 25 Bosnian women and the other women presenters. It was just the women, and we're just ripping it up and having a good time. And a hotel manager walks in, and this is like how pervasive the whole silencing of women is everywhere we go. He walks in and goes, talk to somebody, said, you need to be quiet. We're working in the next conference room. Right. Like we weren't working. We were working. We're working is in the brilliance that women work, which is all the things I've already named, but also the social engagement. And Denisa Anderson she told me she deliberately named the conference Kolo because it's a non-academic word. It's a peasant's word. So it's the wisdom of the peasant, the wisdom of the grassroots, people. And so the kolo, the dance, is so healing. So they were working next door. So we had to silence. I hear you talk about killing silence. So this silence kind of settled over. And Denise had left, and I think she was doing an interview at that time. So we were kind of sitting there with nothing to do until Jamaica, an 80-year-old Bosnian woman, inimitable woman. She came over to me because she had already taken a liking to me, and she scooped me up in her arms. She started dancing me around the room very slowly, kind of a waltz, and she started singing in her language. I guess it was Croatian or Bosnian, I'm not sure. And I didn't know the language, and she's singing, and I kind of sing along with her because she's going slow enough that I could sort of sing along, and broke the silence, right? In this beautiful, elegant way. So a playful way. So I thought that spoke a lot about what women know about healing. And eventually, later in the day, we got up to the courtyard outside and were able to do the full Colo dance, yipping and yelling and all of that outside in that hotel courtyard. And Al Jazeera, the English version of Al Jazeera station channel, had wanted to videotape us, and they were able to at that time then videotape that. So I think that, and I want to kind of go back to the vagina-throat connection and the importance of that neural network through the body. Naomi Wolf has written beautifully about it in her book, Vagina. And there's literally a neural network that starts at the vagina and comes up through the spine and branches out into the organs and goes all the way up into the brain. Now, in the female body, it's much more extensive than it is in the male body, much more. She has a chart of it, and you see it. And so the disruption, the picture I like to give women is that the internalization of misogyny, of woman hatred and fear of woman, takes physical reality, goes into physical reality, is somatized into the body through the disruption of this neural network. We get cut off from our heart, we get cut off from our throat, the vagina-throat connection. Our voice is silenced. It's a literal thing. And so when we are healing ourselves, we're literally growing those connections back. We're restoring the branches, the fibers, the neural network. And we can do that through joy. We do that through speaking out. We do that through action that calls for accountability. All of these things go towards literally restoring that broken network. So, and we're all suffering from that, or I don't want to say suffering, we're all experiencing that as women, whether we've been sexually abused or physically beaten or not. We feel it as we walk through the world. And so these little jokes or the denigrating glance or the male entitlement gaze, they look you up and down, they look through your clothes, right? They're undressing you. Just the whole disrespect of women. We are the life givers. We are the life carriers. And we are sacred. Our bodies are sacred. And we need to demand respect for that. And it's foundational to patriarchy to disconnect women from their bodies and to have control over our reproductive powers. We know how it's playing out now. They're really trying to get, even women in the United States, if they've had a miscarriage, you have to prove it. They're trying to get it so you have to prove it, or you could be jailed for murder. This is where it's moving along to. This is not far-fetched. There's been some cases like that. So healing trauma has to do with reclaiming our female bodily sovereignty. And healing, we do that together. We need the social engagement. We need to speak out together against the perpetrators and have accountability. And of course, this goes for men too. This goes for the whole culture. And we need to break the killing silence. Yeah.
You know what occurs to me, Vajra, is that the telling of the story, is a first step, right? And here we have in the United States, we have the Me Too movement, right? Which is basically encouraging women to tell their story. Their stories I'm sure if you were to say intensity don't match that the rape camps which existed in the Bosnian Serbian War, but nevertheless telling the story. Now here we are telling the story, and I think we're missing some aspects of what that really means. Not maybe, and I'm speaking for the United States. I can't speak for, because Danitza's done amazing work, and there's women in other parts of the country that world may absolutely know what next. But it seems to me that here we have women telling their story, Me Too coming up, and then the backlash has been the denigration, keep those women silent. They're impacting the men, so the men are getting nervous. And instead of women coming together with understanding, stepping further into the storytelling, into the social engagement, not the fight, but even the support of the storytellers, I think is a missing aspect because we do not understand even that missing piece between the vagina and the throat, the solar plexus, birth center, and the brain. What would you in a perfect world, what would be the next teaching step for those engaged in, aware of the Me Too movement?
Wow. That's a really big question. But the first thing that comes to my mind is what you just touched into, is that the ignorance of the glory of the female body, the ignorance of this neural network, the ignorance of the distinct capacities and beautiful capacities of the female body. If there was more appreciation for that, if women really understood it, well, for one thing, we wouldn't be having the gender identity thing, which is like, you're a woman if you say you are, period, which is like crazy. So there's this massive ignorance about the power of the body as a that's basic to patriarchy, to male domination, which is a form of male domination. That the body is less than, that the body is something to be transcended, that the body is just a piece of flesh that we kind of move around to get what we want to do, where the mind or the cognitive thought is the important thing. Well, no, the body is a holder of knowledge, wisdom. It knows how to do a million things we can't do. We can't heal a wound by ourselves. Our body does it. We can't digest the food. Our body does it. We don't even, we can't create the baby. The body does it. We don't know how it does it. We participate with it. We can affect those processes by our own emotions and how we hold it. But we're not the ones that are doing it. It's an incredibly miraculous thing, to gestate a child or to digest food. So I'm not know if that quite answers your question, about what might be missing in the Me Too movement. If women had a greater appreciation for the distinction of our body, and how key it is to patriarchy continuing to control women, to denigrate it, to make it less than, then maybe we'd have more solidarity amongst women. Is that what you're kind of going towards?
Well, I'm certainly throwing it out. I'm going to open the mic for Emma to see what she wants to throw out on the table about that, because the awareness of telling story is present, but we don't want it to dissipate into being silence again. So I think it's an important thing, you see. Emma, something you want to throw in there?
Yeah, I think that really catches my attention. I'm writing my thesis on telling stories and how it changes, how it has the potential to change your life. And I think about, in the past, and maybe this is, mythology that we tell each other, but I don't think it is, that we were innately storytellers, and that we sat around in circles to tell our stories, and sometimes they were women's circles and sometimes they were village circles that included everyone. And what happened is that got co-opted by psychology.